The luxury mall buzzed with chatter and footsteps, glass storefronts gleaming under the midday sun. Lena tightened her grip on the cleaning cart. She pushed down the polished marble floor, her uniform sticking to her back in the heat of a long shift. She kept her eyes low, avoiding the stares that often came with her plain clothes in a place that screamed wealth and designer labels. She didn't belong here. Not among the elite housewives with their LV bags or the cold stares of men in tailored suits. But rent was due, and her daughter needed medicine. Suddenly, a small voice rang out, clear, high-pitched, and startling. "Mommy." Lena froze. A heartbeat later, a tiny body crashed into her legs, arms wrapping around her in a desperate hug. Her eyes widened as she looked down into the cherubic face of a boy, maybe 3 years old, with wide eyes brimming with tears and an expression so full of joy and recognition that it pierced something deep inside her. He buried his face in her apron. "Mommy, I found you." People stopped. Phones came out. Gasps filled the air like a slow-building storm. Lena looked around, heart thundering. "No, no, sweetheart. You've made a mistake." A sharp voice cut through the moment. "Step away from my son." She turned, and the world tilted. Standing just meters away was a tall man in a custom navy suit, silk tie perfectly knotted, sunglasses hiding his expression. But Lena recognized him instantly. Shun Yuza, the city's most feared and admired CEO. Ruthless in boardrooms, unreachable in emotions. And most importantly, the guardian of this child. He strode forward, calm and composed, but the tension in his shoulders betrayed fury. I said, his voice like cold steel, "Let go of my son." I didn't touch him," Lena stammered. "He came to me, called me mommy." "I don't care what he called you," he snapped. Security. The mall guards were already approaching, eyes on her, hands ready to restrain. The child turned, eyes wide. "Daddy, no." "That's mommy." "Mommy." The guards hesitated. Lena's heart pounded so loud she could barely think. Why was the child clinging to her like this? Why did he feel familiar? "Please," she said to the child softly, crouching down. "I'm not your mother." "But you smell like mommy," he whispered, tears slipping down his cheeks. "And your voice, it feels safe." The words shattered her defenses. A flash, a hospital room, fire alarms, a baby torn from her arms, years ago, before the accident and the silence that followed. No, it couldn't be. "Miss, step back," one of the guards said. She stood up slowly. "I didn't do anything wrong. Let me explain." "She's lying," a woman's voice called. A tall, perfectly styled lady stepped out from behind Shinyuza, his assistant, or maybe his fiancé. "She's trying to get attention, maybe blackmail. You know how these low-level women are." Shame hit her like a slap, but so did rage. Lena stepped forward, voice shaking. "How dare you? I work hard. I didn't even know who this child was 5 minutes ago." The boy sniffled, still holding her skirt. "Don't let them take me, mommy." Shun Yuza's jaw tightened. For the first time, he truly looked at her. And something flickered behind those dark sunglasses. Recognition? The crowd watched, breathless. The drama was unfolding like a live soap opera. One of the security guards hesitated. "Sir, the child seems convinced. Maybe we should wait, call someone?" Shinyuza slowly took off his sunglasses. His eyes, sharp, calculating, met Lena's. She held her breath. Then, suddenly, a voice cried out. Grandmother collapsed. All heads turned. At the far end of the floor, an elderly woman in traditional silk had collapsed near the elevator. Without thinking, Lena dashed forward. Kneeling beside the woman, she checked her pulse, loosened her collar, and lifted her legs. "She's in shock. Call emergency services. Keep her head turned." The staff rushed to help, stunned. Shinyuza was among them, his grandmother. Lena stayed by the old woman's side until the medics arrived. Only when the stretcher rolled away did she stand, and find Shinyuza watching her, the little boy now in his arms, silently clinging to his shoulder. His voice was quiet but sharp. "You knew how to help. Most people just panic." I worked as a nurse before, she muttered, brushing dirt off her skirt. Before what? She met his gaze. Before my life was stolen. The air between them thickened. The boy reached toward her. Can mommy come home with us now? Shenyuza looked down, lips parting slightly. For a man who had crushed competitors with a word, he looked lost. He reached for Lina's hand. I don't know who you are, he said, voice low, but I need to find out. Cliffhanger ending. Lina stared at the hand of the man who'd just accused her, hated her, and now was holding her as if he'd never let go. Somehow this child was hers. She could feel it. But how? And why was the most powerful man in the city suddenly afraid of the truth? The silence inside the black luxury car was almost unbearable. Lina sat with her back pressed against the door, her hands clenched at her lap, eyes fixed on the scenery racing by. She could still feel the imprint of Shenyuza's hand wrapped around hers, the lingering warmth, a confusing mix of comfort and danger. The baby, her baby, was fast asleep in his car seat, clutching a stuffed lion. She dared a glance at the man beside her. Shenyuza was watching the road, face unreadable, one hand on the steering wheel, the other resting loosely on his thigh. He hadn't spoken since they left the mall. Not after his grandmother was taken to the hospital. Not after the crowd had cleared. Not even when she tried to explain she had no memory of this child. But he hadn't let her walk away either. And that terrified her more than his silence. 12 minutes earlier, in the mall parking lot. Where are you taking me? Lina asked, pulling her hand back sharply. Shenyuza didn't answer at first. His gaze swept over the child again, now clinging to her leg like she was his only lifeline in the world. Somewhere we can talk, he finally said. Somewhere quiet. I'm not going anywhere with you, she snapped. You already are. He gestured to the little boy, who had begun to sob the moment she tried to step away. Unless you want to break his heart again. Again. That word struck her like lightning. How could she break a heart she didn't even remember touching? Back to the present. I don't understand, Lina finally whispered, breaking the silence. Why does he know me? Why me? Out of thousands of women in that mall? Shenyuza didn't look at her. That's what I intend to find out. She laughed bitterly. So, now I'm what? Your suspect? Your science experiment. No, he said, voice cool but tight. You're the first person in 3 years who's made my son speak with that much emotion. Lina blinked. 3 years. He was found abandoned outside a hospital when he was 6 months old. No identification. No traceable DNA in the system. I adopted him after. His voice trailed off. After what? He hesitated. After someone I trusted betrayed me. Something in his expression cracked, barely, but enough for Lina to realize there were layers behind his ice. And maybe wounds, too. The car slowed as they approached an exclusive gated residence nestled on the edge of the city, massive iron gates, high-tech security, and a driveway paved in polished stone. Guards at the front nodded immediately upon recognizing Shenyuza. The mansion came into view like something out of a film, sleek, modern, and utterly cold. A fortress in glass and steel. Lina swallowed hard. Why bring me here? Because I don't trust hospitals. And because I need answers before the world finds out about this. Inside, the silence deepened. Marble floors, tall ceilings, a grand staircase that split into two like the wings of a crown. He led her into a smaller room, still larger than her entire apartment, a study filled with warm wood, a crackling fireplace, and shelves lined with law books and awards. He motioned toward the seat. She remained standing. I didn't kidnap your son, she said quietly. I didn't come near him. He came to me. Shenyuza removed his suit jacket, hanging it with calculated precision. I know. Her breath caught. Then why? Because the moment he touched you, I saw something I haven't seen in him since the day I brought him home. His voice lowered. Trust. Lina's knees buckled slightly, and she finally sat. What's his name? She asked. Shenmu. He hesitated, then added, but he refuses to call me anything but uncle. No matter what anyone says. Lena's fingers trembled in her lap. She couldn't explain it, this bone-deep ache that swelled the moment she'd touched that child. As if something lost had whispered, "You've found him. Have you ever had a child?" Shinyuza asked suddenly. Her heart seized. She whispered. "I was told I lost the baby in a hospital fire. I never even saw his face. I wasn't conscious." Shinyuza's eyes darkened. "Which hospital?" "Renhua General. 4 years ago." He slowly sat across from her. "That's the same hospital where Mu was found." The room went silent, save for the ticking of the antique clock on the mantel. 2 strangers. 1 child. 1 impossible connection. A knock came at the door. The housekeeper peeked in. "Sir, the young master is awake. And he's asking for her." They both froze. Lena stood slowly, pulse roaring. "Go," Shinyuza said quietly. "Let's see what the boy remembers." She stepped into the nursery. There he was, tiny hands gripping the crib, big eyes lighting up the moment he saw her. "Mommy," he squealed, reaching for her. Lena stepped closer, heartbreaking. "Hi, baby." He hugged her tightly. And then, in a small, muffled voice, he whispered something that made her knees go weak. "I missed your song." The soft sound of a lullaby hummed through the hallway. Shinyuza leaned silently against the nursery doorframe, arms folded, eyes fixed on the woman seated in the rocking chair. Her voice was low, melodic, just above a whisper, and yet it calmed the child instantly. His son. Or maybe her son. A thought that had haunted him since that moment in the mall. The boy rested against her chest, eyes fluttering closed with each gentle stroke of her fingers through his hair. As if her heartbeat was the only home he had ever known. Yuza's throat tightened. She hadn't even noticed he was standing there. She wasn't performing. She wasn't trying to impress him or earn sympathy. She was just being. That made it worse. And infinitely more dangerous. Lena looked up finally, as if sensing the weight of his gaze. Her expression softened but cautious. "He fell asleep right away," she murmured, rising slowly so she wouldn't wake the boy. "He hasn't slept this easily in months," Yuza replied, his voice low. A pause stretched between them, tense, delicate. She brushed her hand gently across the child's hair. "Maybe it's just instinct. Children sense things adults try to ignore." He stared at her. "Instinct." She turned. "You don't believe in that?" "I believe in DNA reports. Paper trails. Evidence." Lena's jaw tensed. And if those things were stolen or hidden? For a second, his carefully composed mask slipped. Then he turned, motioning for her to follow him into the hall. "Come. There's something I want you to see." They entered his private study again, this time quieter, dimmer, more intimate under the warm glow of amber lights. He went to a drawer and pulled out a file, neat, labeled, and clinical. This was everything the hospital had on Shinmu. It wasn't much. She opened the file slowly. Medical forms. Photos. A social worker's typed notes. One caught her eye. Infant found outside ER entrance, wrapped in pale blue blanket with floral trim. Lena's breath hitched. I had that blanket. My mother made it for my baby." Shinyuza's gaze sharpened. "I told them to check for any hospital errors or misplaced infants after the fire," she whispered. "They said my baby had died from smoke inhalation, that there was nothing left to identify. They even showed me cremation papers." "You trusted them?" "I had no choice." Her voice cracked, raw. "I was 19, alone, recovering from burns. I didn't even get to hold him." Her hands shook as she clutched the file. Yuza said nothing. But something shifted in his expression. A crack in the ice. She took a deep breath. "Why are you really keeping me here?" He looked directly at her now, voice calm but firm. "Because I don't believe in coincidence. That child ran to you like he'd known you forever. And now you're telling me your son was taken from the same hospital I adopted him from." "You think I planned this?" she asked, voice rising. "I think someone did." His gaze narrowed. "And I want to know who." Her heart pounded. "What are you saying?" I'm saying if someone wanted to cover up an illegal adoption, if someone took your child and sold him to the black market. He paused, his voice turning cold. Then they used me too. That struck her silent. For once, Lina didn't see a powerful CEO in front of her. She saw a man, angry, betrayed, and deeply, silently protective. The air between them grew still, intimate in its intensity. I'm staying here, she said suddenly. He raised a brow. Excuse me? Until we find out the truth. About Moo. About the hospital. About all of it. And if I say no? She stepped closer, chin lifted. Then I'll leave, and I'll go to the press. Or the police. I don't care who you are. He looked at her long and hard. Then, unexpectedly, he smiled. Not cold. Not cruel. But intrigued. You've got guts. She turned toward the door.
No.
I've got something to fight for. That night, Lina lay in the guest room staring at the ceiling, unable to sleep. Down the hall, her son, her baby, slept under the roof of a man she didn't trust, yet couldn't hate. What scared her more was that part of her didn't want to walk away.
Not yet.
Not after hearing Moo call her mommy again. Not after feeling his tiny heartbeat against hers. Not after sensing the strange electricity that buzzed between her and Shinyuza like a live wire. This wasn't just a custody case. This was fate clawing its way back to her. The storm hit just after midnight. Thunder cracked above Shinyuza's estate like an angry god pounding his fists on the sky. Rain poured down in sheets, drumming against the glass walls of the grand living room. But the real storm was brewing inside. Lina stood frozen in the hallway, eyes wide as she stared at the face on the tablet screen in front of her. A face she hadn't seen in 4 years. Nurse Zhang, she whispered. The video clip played again, blurry security footage from the night of the hospital fire. A nurse hurriedly exiting the infant ward. In her arms, a blue bundle. The same floral blanket Lina had described. Her baby. And the nurse's badge was visible for just a second. Zhang Mei. Her former roommate. Her best friend. Her betrayer. Shinyuza stood behind her, arms folded, his jaw clenched. She left the hospital 2 weeks after the fire. No forwarding address. But her name shows up again, attached to a private adoption agency I used when I found Shinmu. Lina turned to him, blood draining from her face. You're saying she sold my son to you? He didn't blink. I'm saying someone made a lot of money to make sure neither of us ever knew the truth. The weight of it crashed down on her all at once. The lies. The grief. The years spent mourning a child who had never really been gone. And the guilt. Deep, swallowing, endless. She was my friend, Lina said hollowly, her voice cracking. I trusted her. I told her everything. She held me while I cried in that hospital. She also took your son, Shinyuza said, voice tight, and gave him a new identity. With my name. He looked away, as if the truth burned worse than any betrayal. I thought I was saving him. You did, she whispered, staring at the screen. You just didn't know from what. A crack of thunder interrupted them. Then, a soft knock at the door. Yuza's eyes narrowed. It's nearly 1 a.m. Who the hell? He strode to the door, but Lina stopped him, heart racing. A strange chill had settled in her bones the moment the knock came. Yuza opened the door cautiously, and standing there, soaked from head to toe in the storm, was Zhang Mei. Her hair clung to her face. Her eyes, once warm and familiar, were now wild. And in her trembling hands, a gun. Lina gasped. Shinyuza didn't move. Mei. The woman's hands shook. I didn't mean to. I never meant for it to go this far. You stole my child, Lina said, her voice rising. You lied to me. You let me bury an empty casket. Zhang Mei's eyes flickered to her. I was trying to protect you. By taking my son? Mei's voice cracked. There were people in that hospital doing unspeakable things. Swapping babies for profit. Selling records. Faking deaths. I knew you were too weak, too broken. You would have been destroyed. I saved him. No, Yuza growled, stepping forward, You sold him. The gun wavered. I didn't take the money for me. My brother had cancer. I needed to save him. Lina stepped forward slowly, eyes filled with tears. And what about me? What about the nights I woke up screaming, thinking I'd lost everything? What about the lullabies I sang to a ghost? May sank to her knees, sobbing. The gun clattered to the floor. I'm sorry, she whispered. I just wanted to make it right. Yusa kicked the gun away and grabbed his phone. Don't call the police. May cried. Please.
I'll testify. I'll tell you who else was involved.
The director. The records clerk. The agency. I'll give you everything. He paused. Lina watched him. She's the only link we have to the full truth. Silence. Then Yusa lowered the phone. 3 days, he said coldly. You give me names, documents, proof. Then you disappear. May nodded, wiping tears from her face. I will. I promise. After May was gone, escorted by security, the gun confiscated, the rain still pouring, Lina collapsed onto the couch. Yusa poured her a drink and handed it over in silence. She took a long sip, then whispered, Everything I believed about my life just shattered. He sat beside her. Mine too. They didn't look at each other. Didn't speak for a long time. Just sat in the quiet wreckage of what was once a lie and was now a painful truth. Twist ending. Upstairs, Shenmu stirred in his sleep. A fever had started, and in the shadows of the hallway, Yusa's assistant, Jiang Qian, watched silently. She clutched a phone to her chest. The screen glowed with a message. You have 72 hours. If you can't silence the mother, we will. The sound of shattering glass split the room. Lina jolted, breath catching as the wine glass slipped from her hand and hit the marble floor. The silence that followed was louder than the noise. She stood there, stunned, one hand trembling over her chest, the other slick with red wine that looked too much like blood in the dim study light. Her thoughts were spinning. Her heartbeat thundered in her ears. Her son was sick upstairs. Her best friend had betrayed her. The man beside her, the father of her child in every way that mattered, was a stranger who'd taken her son, unknowingly, and yet still didn't fully trust her. Everything was spinning out of control. Shun Yusa moved forward instantly, brushing glass aside with a towel, his voice calm but clipped. You're shaking. No, she snapped, backing away. Don't touch me. He paused, then slowly straightened. You think I'm your enemy. Her laugh was bitter. You think you're not? I saved him. You raised him. But saving him would have meant finding out where he came from, asking questions, not buying a child like he was a corporate asset. That hit deep, and his flinch proved it. For a moment, neither spoke. The storm had stopped outside, but the one between them had just begun. Upstairs, soft whimpers echoed through the monitor. Lina turned her head, instinct pulling her toward the sound. Yusa reached the stairs first. By the time Lina followed him into the nursery, Shinmu was curled in a tight ball, cheeks flushed, tiny hands fisted into the sheets. Mommy, he moaned, barely conscious. Mommy, it hurts. She ran to him, dropping beside the bed. Sweetheart, I'm here. I'm right here. Yusa stood nearby, fists clenched. We need a doctor. I'm a nurse, remember? She snapped. Get me a cold cloth.
Now.
He didn't argue. Lina worked fast, checking vitals, lowering his fever with damp compresses, whispering lullabies between every breath. Yusa returned and knelt beside her, but stayed back. And, for once, let her lead. After what felt like hours, Mu's breathing calmed, and he drifted into sleep again, his small hand curled tightly around her pinky. Lina sagged in relief. Yusa exhaled. You saved him again. She didn't look at him. Because I'm his mother. I know that now. His words made her go still. She finally turned her head. Do you really? Yusa's voice lowered.
Yes.
I see it in his eyes. I hear it in your voice. And I feel it when he cries for you, not me. Tears filled hers unspilled. Then why are you still keeping us here like prisoners? He looked down. Because if I let you go, I lose everything. The room fell into stillness, tension buzzing like a wire pulled too tight. Everything, she repeated. You mean your company? Your reputation? No, he said hoarsely. I mean him. The only person who ever needed me, without conditions. And now I know he was never mine to begin with. Li Na stood slowly, her spine straightening. He is yours. You fed him, protected him, gave him a name. But that doesn't give you the right to hide the truth anymore. Yu's jaw tightened. And what if someone doesn't want the truth to come out? What if keeping you quiet keeps him safe? She blinked. What are you saying? He hesitated, then whispered. There are people watching us. People who would destroy you and use him, just to keep their secrets buried. Before she could respond, the door slammed open. Jiang Qian, his longtime assistant, burst in. Sir, there's media outside the gates. Someone leaked the adoption papers. And the child's original hospital records. Li Na froze. What records? Jiang Qian's smile was tight. The ones I personally buried 4 years ago. The room turned to ice. Yu's expression shattered. You knew? I was following orders, Jiang Qian said, voice cold. You were too soft. Too emotional. I protected your legacy when you wouldn't. You lied to me, he growled, stepping forward. You think she's the only one who's been hurt? Jiang Qian snapped. I stood by you for years, built your empire, loved you from a distance. And you threw it all away for a cleaner and an orphan. Li Na's voice cut through the tension. Where did the records come from? Qian's smile turned razor-sharp. Someone powerful and angry. You were never supposed to come back, Li Na. You were supposed to stay dead. The scream shattered the hallway. Mommy! Shenmu's cry rang out again, sharp and terrified. Li Na didn't wait. Barefoot, heart thundering, she sprinted past Shenyu, past Jiang Qian's stunned face, and took the stairs 2 at a time. Her vision tunneled. She could only see his door, slightly ajar, swaying with a breeze that shouldn't have existed. Her son was in danger. Behind her, Shenyu's voice barked orders. Security. Lock the estate down. But it was a distant hum compared to the single, piercing thought in Li Na's mind. No one will take him for me again. She slammed the nursery door open. A figure in black stood at the window, half-crouched, arms already lifting Shenmu out of bed. The child kicked wildly, sobbing. Mommy! Mommy! Li Na lunged with a cry, no hesitation. She collided with the intruder hard enough to knock the figure backward, both of them crashing into a dresser. A lamp shattered. Shenmu tumbled safely onto the mattress, screaming. The intruder cursed in a language Li Na didn't recognize and swung at her, but she ducked, adrenaline making her fierce and fast. She grabbed the nearest thing, a framed photo of Shenmu and Shenyuza, and slammed it into the attacker's head. They stumbled. Then a powerful arm yanked the attacker back. Shenyuza. He grabbed the intruder by the collar, slamming them into the wall. Who sent you? But the attacker was trained.
Swift. Silent.
With a sharp jab to Yu's ribs and a roll off the wall, they bolted for the window. Li Na rushed to her son and pulled him into her arms, shielding his tiny body as the intruder jumped and disappeared into the night. Security stormed in seconds later, too late. The nursery was a wreck. Shenmu clung to Li Na's neck, trembling. I was dreaming, he sobbed. About you. Then someone grabbed me. Li Na's heart shattered into a million pieces. You're safe now. I'm here. Mommy's here. Yuza stood frozen, one hand on the windowsill, the wind tugging at his loosened tie. His jaw was tight, eyes unreadable. That wasn't a robbery. That was a warning. Li Na looked at him. Someone knew we were getting close to the truth. Someone who still has the power to silence the past. Later, when the house had quieted, and Shenmu had fallen asleep again between them, one small hand clutching Li Na's finger, the other tangled in Yu's shirt, they sat on the bed in heavy silence. His voice broke first. Quiet.
Hollow.
I've failed him. No, Li Na whispered. You've protected him. even when you didn't know who he really was. You were supposed to stay dead, he said bitterly, eyes fixed on the floor. That's what Jiang Qian said. That's what someone decided. Because your truth would ruin everything they built. She stared at the sleeping boy between them. Then we tear down what they built, brick by brick. He turned to her slowly. You'd fight this with me? She met his gaze. Would you really try to stop me? For the first time in weeks, a flicker of something warm broke the ice in his expression. No, he murmured. I'd stand in front of you. The next morning came too quickly. Shinmu woke up healthy, his fever gone, his laughter soft but real. He insisted on sitting between them for breakfast, feeding Yuza toast, and resting his head on Lina's arm. As if nothing had happened. As if love was the only world he'd ever known. But the world outside the estate was already erupting. News headlines were spreading. Top CEO Shin Yuza linked to illegal adoption? Biological mother found alive after hospital fire cover-up. Inside the billion-dollar scandal. Who bought the silence? Lina scrolled in stunned silence. Yuza entered, holding a folder. We need to go public before they twist the narrative. You want to hold a press conference? I want the world to hear it from us. The truth. Not rumors. Lina looked at the folder. Inside were the files Jiang Qian had tried to bury. Photos. Documents. Birth records. A DNA test she hadn't even known had been done. At the top, in clear, undeniable print. Mother, Lina. Child, Shinmu. Tears blurred her vision. But one word stood out more than anything. Mother.